These guys just put out a video on YouTube where they're talking to the guy who wrote the book The Day After Roswell. They had Corso on, and he's talking some crazy stuff, man. And I mean, this guy, he doesn't come across to me as a liar. What do you make of all that?
Well, I haven't seen him, but on a good news is that I actually have held pieces of the Roswell spacecraft in my hand.
How'd you do that?
I met somebody in 2015, and he has some pieces of the spacecraft.
Wow.
They weren't incredibly large pieces. They went out and found them in the 1980s. He didn't like my answer. I said, well, because he asked me what I thought of them. I go, well, there's three possibilities. They're genuine, alien technology. They're pieces that were manufactured in 1947, or pieces that were made with 1980s technology. And basically implying that he was a liar. But I didn't mean to, but I did. And it was, but I think the interesting thing that I got out of it was the technology that I was looking at. Didn't seem, I mean, to him it might have seemed more advanced, but maybe it's because I grew up with, well, I guess you could say, near farms, and the old stuff still stayed around. Like, I mean, hemp rope went illegal in 1938, and I was using the hemp ropes in 1980. So, they last a while. So there are parts that like there was hexagon parts that were growing mold, and he goes, "Do you know anything that can grow off of metal?" And I'm like, I didn't want to say, have you ever looked at, your own drainage system for your house? Moss can grow on that, but I didn't want to say that. But the other thing that he was talking about was some of the pieces, and they looked they looked like they were pre-plastic. Do you know what I mean? Like hard, thick, definitely injection molded or something like that. Very interesting, but something I would say was definitely 1940s or 50s technology. Certainly could be easily, I mean, they needed these things in the planes anyway. Very few of us has ever really seen the inside of any World War II airplane or parts of it, so I can't expect him not to understand what he was looking at. One part looked like a high pressure cooling system, or carburetor, or not carburetor,
water pump.
No, to cool down the oil cooling, but under compression.
Oh yeah. Oil.
He wouldn't understand. I mean, even the Germans didn't really figure that out at the beginning of the war, so it was fairly new technology. Believe it or not, I think Britain got the technology from their race car circuit. They've learned how to compress oil and make it very hot, and then put that through the radiator.
So you think the Corso, he was the colonel who was the head of R&D. That's what they call research and development.
Oh, yes.
And he's talking that they did an autopsy, they did recover bodies, they did an autopsy, and he thinks that they were clones that served like they're biological robots. And
that's a new twist.
And they serve the aliens. Yeah, well, it was a interview. I just sent it to you. I guess we shouldn't talk about it until you see it.
But, well, no, I don't mind.
The thing is, too, when you look at that, describe an alien. Is it from another planetary area?
Yeah.
Or is it someone different from within Earth?
That's an interesting question, because I think that entities might exist beneath us. Who knows?
Actually, that doesn't surprise me either.
Not
that they're actually. I mean, if you could think about it, it would be really hard unless you had a few giant common rooms down underground somewhere to exist, and it would have to be a place where you're not going to get any encounters with lava tubes or anything that's going to really ruin your day.
No doubt.
And of course, water would be coming down all the time, because water continues going to the center of the Earth. In fact, that could be half of the reason why, like as much as I don't want to think that that's actually the cause of it, that'd be friggin' hilarious. Like just a pressure explosion because water is entering towards the core and it hits the core and just causes giant, like megaton explosions down there.
Mm.
You know, because that's, I mean, when you instantly vaporize water, it's a bad day usually.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's what was caused the Chernobyl there. Like the biggest problem with the Chernobyl was not the part blowing off the top and exposing all that radiation. Well, that was a problem, obviously. But when they poured water onto the thing, they were trying to put it out and stuff, and then they started dropping boron, but the tanks got filled by all the water they were dropping in there. Wow. And that's why they had to send the 3 guys in to go and close the water off, because well, that's how close we were. I mean, you were alive then, I was alive then, I think we were all alive then, but it was, we didn't find out until later, but when they said, if it actually made contact with those water containers and they were filled, it would have been a 2 to 3 megaton explosion and would have spread all of that fuel everywhere. It would have been, well, it would have been the end of Asia and probably the Northern Hemisphere. So, but back to what we were talking about here about, I didn't actually see the thing, but the debris in the Bive, I heard a lot about it, of course. I don't know who to believe sometimes.
I know.
But there is one thing that I am certain about is in the, if you saw there was a Thunderbolts video recently. Let's see. Anyway, the video, I can't seem to locate it this. I just scrolled down through the last few videos, but there was there's one about electric earthquakes.
Yeah.
For sure. I like that one. But the other one was, that was the latest one. But it was actually from 2003. So, and it's actually true that does happen, very much so. Thinking about electric earthquakes and the pressures being built up when rocks are compressed, especially piezoelectric rocks. You know, you're basically creating, by compressing them, you're creating a north and south pole with high voltage between them. The more you press, the higher the voltage gets. And this even happens to metals, actually. That's why we were, I remember reading something about pressure and what happens when you hit like megabars, millions of atmospheric pressures, and things like hydrogen, for example, gets all of the electrons pushed to the outside and becomes a metal lattice. But all the electrons are on the outside, and so it becomes like a mirror. And there's other things like that, which, by the way, is why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
It's the fact that if these aliens could get to this planet, why can we see them?
Right.
I mean, it's really cool thinking about it from the 1940s and saying we picked them up with our highest tech equipment, radar.
Yeah.
Using our radar to see these objects go around, and I'm picking them up with my camera on my planes and stuff. Okay, great. And every time you move towards them, what happens? Well, it moves 90 degrees in one direction. I wonder why. Because literally you're a charged body with a charged plate across the hood of it, which, as we know, or as you may or may not know, you have to actually, when you get out of an airplane, you have to turn that off.
Yeah.
you have to basically ground the plane before you can get out of it because it's so charged.
Right.
And then you have a bunch of metal-based fuel behind you that is basically a long tail made of charged particles that is heading down to another atmospheric layer. So you are a charged probe heading towards a object which is likely a plasmoid. The plasmoid is going to move 90 degrees, either up, down, left, or right, and that's going to move away from you because you're a charged body. And this is what I think that they're chasing around in the sky. Yeah. That's my feeling, because today it's ridiculous. We have planes that can easily avoid radar detection. Well, not easily, but high-techly. And if the aliens from another world are doing this, well, of course they are. They would be completely invisible to us. I mean, they would, or at least to our equipment. Maybe we'd see them, as lights, but we wouldn't, be able to pick them up on radar unless we wanted to.
Well, it's been such go ahead, finish your thought.
Well, it brings me to think about the way that they detected metal on the tops of the mountains of Venus, or they found underground. They find like an entire alignment of water flowing in one direction, and they're like, "Why is that happening?" And I'm like, "It's the opposite to the ring current. It's the other side of the ring current, but it's underground. The ring current being the what we call the wind, the jet stream is a ring current around the North Pole. So currents flowing in the North Pole going around, and it's creating another current going right angles to that, which creates this jet stream that we know so much and love so much. And there must be one opposite to that underground, like under the earth. So that's what I think they're seeing, but it's charged particles, so it looks like metal. And that's the same thing with the roof of the tops of these mountains. They're charged, and plasma reflects exactly like it's metal.
Yeah, but like in that Tic Tac video, where the fighters are chasing it, it's up on its side and it boogies, right? Well, that's exactly what Corso said when he saw this craft, that it tipped up on its side and just vanished into a blue, red, or blue and orange light.
Yeah, like an aurora. Yeah.
So there's been such a deal in a flap over disclosure and all this.
There has been recently, and I don't know why that's going on. I'm not against it.
No.
I mean, I've seen a lot of cool stories, some very interesting ones about people who saw what they shouldn't have saw, hovering objects and stuff. But luckily, I'm a bit of a sci-fi buff, and a lot of that stuff, I mean, some things I saw were just total BS, because I said, well, that picture that you have there is from the movie Hangar 18 from 1980.
Yeah.
Or something. And I'm like, which is a great little flick. But the point is that you just didn't expect anyone to know that. Well, that you're just going to fool 90% of the people. That tells me that you want to lie to them. I'm looking for people who want to tell the truth. Right. And you're right. I don't know. Some of them seem really convinced.
Yeah. I mean, the way that Corso talks, it just doesn't seem to me that he's lying.
However, we also should be aware that controlling the UFO people is like a thing. Like the CIA is totally into controlling them. And I don't know why. Like I'm not sure. Is it just something that, like, if they can make the most outlandish thing, then no one can go beyond that? I've heard that described too. Like the limits of discourse is set by the mass media, and anything outside of that is sort of crazy.
Well, the mass media has never treated the UFO subject seriously. They always laugh it off and make it like you're kooky.
Well, except for a couple times. Like, for example, the Battle of LA. Yeah. Like, if you go and look into that, that is amazing. Yeah. I mean, the amount of firepower they unleashed into the sky over Los Angeles was for the time incredible. They just saw UFOs in the sky, thought they were bombers, and said, and they saw them coming in over the coast.
Yeah, what do you
the radar. Well, I think that they were doing what they should be doing.
But like, what do you think it was? You think it was really an extraterrestrial craft?
No, God, no. No, I think they were firing at plasmoids. But they came in over the water, and the charges would go with the coast. They would come in over the water, and they would stop right near the mountains. Why wouldn't they? Because that's a higher up object, which is now sort of damp, which is what they love. Like, if you understand electricity, it gets a lot of, if you basically, dirty water is like a perfect conductor. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it gets a lot of, it can be a lot of contact. But then they just lit the skies up, trying to blow them up. And no matter what, they were firing at something. The military doesn't do that. So I can't deny that these things fly around. Right. But now that we see them underwater too,
going just as fast as they can in the air,
because they're not physical objects. That's why they can move at like 90 degrees and just suddenly take off at super massive speeds, because speed is not a limitation to an object that has no mass.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's being basically, it's like taking a magnet with a magnet attached to the other end, and like two north poles or whatever, and sort of pushing against it. Wherever you move, it's going to want to go 90 degrees off to one side or something. And that's what sort of, in my opinion, what we do when we do that. Setting up explosions, I have no idea what that would do. I mean, it might actually make them brighter, because you're filling the air with smoke, and smoke is a great conductor. You've seen the little trick where they light the smoke and the candle comes back on. And you've seen it's just take a candle and you just blow it out, and the smoke starts rising, and you can just light the smoke and it will just come right back down and light the candle. Yeah. And you can do the same thing happens with you've probably seen some pictures of Burning Man there, where they had the giant fire, and the fire just makes tornadoes. Just tornadoes start coming off of it because it's just such a massive fire with smoke. And the smoke. Yeah, and eventually they don't require the fire. They start with the fire, obviously, because that's where the smoke is. But once the wind blows the tornado out of it, or the smoke whirl, I guess, it can pick up dust from the ground, and it's still it's a conduit now. It's just slowly discharging to the atmosphere. And as we know, the electricity of the ground is different than the electricity in the air, and each cloud layer is a different charge layer. And that actually continues not just to the ionosphere, but all the way to the friggin' sun. You can get like a charge layer every 3 meters. Right. It's crazy. So, I mean, I don't know exactly, to me, thinking about them, what they are, or the fact that they come from underground. Now, that's very interesting, because there's no reason to think that we didn't. Well, I mean, we clearly did. We clearly hid in the ground to get away from something that we had enough time to build something to protect ourselves against. That tells me something. You have to have a suitable period of time to build enough space for 20 or 40,000 people. Right. And you'd be working for how many years to do that, just before the next big thing comes around. Like Venus is going around the sun, and you're like, okay, it's going to miss this, that. Okay, it's going to miss this. It comes around. All right, now she's getting pissed. All right, everyone in the cave.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah, because there was one at the Grand Canyon too, so they're really all over the world.
Yeah, clearly. In fact, there's a story of one of my favorite stories. I'm not sure if I heard this from Wall or from who exactly, but it was a story about it's like a Day of the Dead festival in South America, but they crawl on their stomachs for like 5 miles.
Wow.
Or 5 kilometers, I can't remember, to a set of caves. And the only reason I could think that is electricity is going everywhere. Okay. Just going nuts. You had a giant storm coming down, lightning bolts everywhere. If you stood up, you were dead. That's what it tells me. So you crawled on your belly, like dragging yourself along by your lips until you got to that cave. And that's where the survivors came out of. Everyone else died.
Yeah, caves are freaky. I don't know if I'd feel comfortable in a cave.
Would you rather get hit by lightning?
No.
I think that what happened was, when they came out, and they were no longer in fear of, for lack of a better term, Venus, if that did occur, which Velikovsky obviously has something to say about that, but let's leave those alone, but just assume that it did. Well, after that, you would build structures everywhere if you want to move around, because you walked, you didn't have cars or anything, you took rivers, or pack animals to go across ground.
Yeah. And
what do you do if one of these storms come, like a storm that, like you didn't have meteorology, you had to trust, your soothsayers and everything else, who are just basically old people who've been around a lot, which could tell you this is going to be bad or good. Okay, great. And then you go do it. But what happens if the storm you get hit by is not just a storm like we get today, like a thunderstorm, which, as you know, can kill a few people. Sure. But imagine if it was 10 or 100 times worse, right, with a lot more hits and everything else. Yeah. You might build things like rock shelters, like Faraday cages, or walls, as Andy had, me and Andy had talked about, but he definitely recently reported about these, about the fact that there are these ancient structures are connected with metal, which is a Faraday cage, making every block the same charge. He thinks differently on some of those bulges and stuff, but let's not dwell. The what I'm interested in is dolmens, things that only have one hole in them.
Yes,
You can put you can crawl yourself into them, or they have just three rocks with. Now, I always wondered why three, and honestly, I'm not sure. I don't know why three is there. I mean, we do know that there were things in the sky that had three legs. It looked like, so it could be an imitation of that. But eventually, the four legs, the four rivers or pathways of the Great Conjunction, became more prominent over time, and then eventually eight, as we know.
Yeah.
At the dawn of man, or the dawn of our civilization, as we might call it. But I've always wondered about that. I was wondered about, and of course, what would they think was in the sky? Like, we talk about these little UFOs, but one of the things that I recall that they talked about is the entire aurora turning red and giant things traveling through the skies. They thought they were long-haired Valkyries.
You could see it all the way down to Florida.
Yeah. So clearly they had some shit going on in their atmosphere. Pardon my French. But with regards to that, and I mean, we see some pictures in ancient books and stuff. You know, just the descriptions of the angels alone tell me that that's a plasmoid. I mean, look, it's basically two rings of eyes crisscross each other with wings on the top and bottom. Well, actually, what that is a donut. Okay, and that donut's a magnetic field that is being generated by the plasmoid in the middle. And it would create secondary plasmoids around it, just like you would see around supernova 1987A. If you saw the pictures of that explosion, you see that has a ring around it, and there's just a bunch of plasmoids around it, and they keep getting brighter, but they're not exploding or anything. And of course, that's one of the falsifications of the, supernova hypothesis, because we honestly don't know when. We don't know when these things are going to blow up. Honestly, I have no clue when the sun's going to pop, or if it ever will.
Right.
I mean, I just don't know. I mean, we happen to be in a relatively comfortable place, it seems, but it wasn't. I mean, even Gareth was talking about a star that almost wiped out humanity, other things like that. The Pleiades exploding.
Yeah.
Well,
that supernova that they're talking about, couldn't that have just been Saturn nova? It was a star.
No. Oh, you mean the one that exploded and almost wiped out humanity, the one that he's talking about?
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not sure. I never really got a chance to actually see that. He's talking about a Schultz star in a binary system 22 light years away from us, which
I'm actually going to read that.
It would be amazing. It reminds me of the talk of the Pleiades. In fact, a couple of these things might have happened. All of them could have happened. Because imagine if a charge was going up the pipe, as it were. The charge is traveling at light speed, and it's not following a direct path. It's going up the local chimney. And as it does so, it flares up a bunch of planets around us because we get more power going into the sun. And some stars exploded. Now, I'm not trying to dismiss Velikovsky in any way, but there are critics who would say, well, it doesn't seem likely that could happen. Sure. Doesn't seem likely. That seems something that we could focus on, just like the electric comet's a good thing to focus on, because as we go closer to these comets, we keep on finding problems of our theory. I mean,
they're not snowballs.
No, clearly. I mean, just looking at one, I'm often amazed. This is like proof, in a way, of proof that just as James Burke said in his wonderful series, The Day the Universe Changed. He said, our brain tells us what our eyes are seeing. And Mel Atkinson had tried to have that same discussion before, saying, look, they're just looking through the wrong end of the telescope and imagining what they see.
Right.
These are good quotes, but the end result is that our brain wants to see UFOs, it will see UFOs. My brain wants to see plasmoids. The reason that I think that the angels look like plasmoids is the same reason why I think that they had wings, like the gods had wings, like the bird gods all had wings. Well, they had wings because we could only see the north and south streamers coming off of the magnetic pole of that planet. And so that's how big these wings were. Okay, so you're talking about something in the sky that would be like larger than like a baseball at arm's length or more. Like that's a pretty big object in the sky. The moon, as big as you think it is only the size of an aspirin at arm's length.
Mm-hmm.
So something the size of a baseball at arm's length. And imagine that it had eyes going around it, like plasmoids. We're seeing it from the side now. And you have fiery red throne or wings at the bottom and fiery red wings coming off the top. But you can't see the side where they connect, because it's too thin out there on the sides. So we can sense the Van Allen radiation belts around the Earth, but we can't see our magnetic field. You know what I mean? So that's the same thing. We can only see the aurora down where it concentrates near the Earth. But imagine if you could see the whole friggin' thing, like going past the moon. I mean, it would be absolutely gigantic. Mm-hmm. And we actually drew pictures of that. We call it the Holy Grail and everything else. A giant thing that just was like a tube coming out of the northern part of the planet. And we were like going, what the fuck is that? Like, I mean, and the sky was going purple, and of course, imagine everyone on the planet, anything on the planet would be freaking out. I like the idea that, this happened a while ago and that our planet adjusted to it. And I do like the idea, though, that the concept of why we didn't see blue is very obvious to me and you. We couldn't see blue because the sky was purple. Done.
Oh, back then, yeah.
That's easy. But you see it all the time now. They try to say, why couldn't ancient people see blue until 2,700 years ago? Well, why did all of humanity suddenly become conscious 2,700 years ago? And all the philosophies were made 2,700 years ago. Probably because of the same reason they couldn't see blue. The sky was different and it stopped freaking us the fuck out. I think it really, really caused us to be like literally in shock so much that we believed anything we saw in the sky. I mean, just like today, we believe anything we see on TV. I think that might be a holdover for that. What I mean? I mean, just the willingness to give up ourselves to something higher is like ingrained in us now.
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't matter, and I'm not trying to be a complete dick about it. I mean, if you believe in God or don't believe in God, that's fine. My mom does, my dad doesn't. I'm okay with it. If he's there or not when I die, great.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
If it's something else, I often say that if I am part of the universe and I understand something, then by extension, the universe understands it. What if I was put here by the universe in a nice philosophical way to learn what it is, and so it can tell itself when I die?
We don't even have any idea what electricity really is. I mean, it seems to be magic, doesn't
it? It's not what people think it is, for sure. The like people say, oh, it's the movement of electrons. Yes, kinda.
Mm-hmm.
Kinda. But it's really the field that is on top of the wire and just underneath its surface.
Yes, I've heard that.
That's where it all occurs.
Yes.
And by that nature, the idea of it having layers, as in the Birkeland current that Don Scott talks about, is 100% the way it would work. And that's the way it happens in the lab. So there's no reason to even doubt that in a way. But that's just how plasma works. What the electricity flows through the plasma, and it flows on these layers, like they're the outside of a wire. And they're going in different directions as well. Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. All of it tells me that what we know about electricity, and of course, the truth, you must have saw that new one with the Y-Files guy.
I haven't watched it in a while. What's he saying?
Well, he did a whole thing on the electric universe there a couple months ago.
Oh, I didn't know that. I find it hard to take his shtick with the
fish. With the fish, yeah. Well, I'll tell you right now, he did us good.
He did?
He did.
Okay.
He did us really good. It's clear that he watched my video and Professor Day's video.
Okay.
Like someone in his team clearly put things together because they cited it. They not directly like they went and said, hey, this is exactly, but they saw the argument, which was hero worship and just bashing people doesn't make you a scientist. You can't just go and slam these people just because they have a different opinion than you. All of history has shown that the people with different opinions have been right.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me, since you bring him up, I did see one interesting show that he had a few months ago.
He's had a
where,
few.
Where he was talking about a dude who got these two giant transformers and ran these two, it was like a super Faraday motor or something, but it had two electrodes, and he had all this electricity going through it, zapping, zap, 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 and then it created a dimension, like a hole, and he went through it and claimed that he came out in Ohio 2 years later.
That does sound cool, but I doubt it.
That's just something, the magic of electricity.
Yes. If we are 100% behind that. I'll tell you right now, every single theory about blowing through a hole in the space-time continuum involves electricity. We certainly are not dropping rocks. But the trouble is, in actuality, is that we've never actually built anything that can, or found a material that can bend any sort of dimension or show that there's any other out there. The only evidence we have is math. And they said, well, logically, okay, how much are we really being logical anymore? Like Aristotle invented logic to discuss why a plant is there or why something falls or whatever, you know what I mean? Like it's not, or why there's holes in your skin because you sweat. He didn't make it so that we could take logic, combine it with math, and go and say, oh, there's 11 dimensions. Yeah. I mean, that doesn't make it real just because they said it. You know what I mean? And that's where, at the end of the day, I really do trust those people who are playing with actual forces, actually, like someone like, for example, at the JPL laboratories, Anthony Peratt there. He was dumping 1.6 million amps across a distance of 2 inches. If anything was going to blow through the space-time continuum, that was that. Okay, or a nuclear bomb, and none of them have. You know what I mean? Yeah. All the energy we expected to get out of the nuclear bomb stayed in this dimension. Okay, great, good to know. We didn't even blow up the whole Earth's atmosphere. Congratulations for us. But it's in a way very it's much more tangible that in the electric universe model that everything exists in these 3 dimensions with time. That is where we live. And it doesn't look like there's any way out of that, or that there's any sort of like multiple dimensions, as much as we might want to think so. I mean, I'm willing to be wrong on that, by the way. Totally cool. Totally cool with being wrong. I love Stargate. So
the Jay Heineck guy, he said that he doesn't think UFOs are nuts and bolts vehicles from another star. He thinks they come from either other dimensions or Earth.
Well, that bothers me greatly too, and I'll tell you why. Because that was sort of predicted. Have you heard of, and this is a weird conspiracy, but it's just not promoted a lot, even by the conspiracy nuts, which is why I like to bring it up. He's the gentleman that Werner von Braun, or Braun, as you know, he had a secretary, and his secretary said a bunch of interesting stuff about him. One of them was that he was trying to fake a takeover of the Earth by aliens. And it's interesting because that was also said by Reagan in the 80s. And how much would our differences not matter anymore if we were attacked by aliens? And of course then we have a bunch of alien attack movies that came out after the 80s. Okay, so, and I'm trying to say conspiratory land here, but when I think about that, they would realize, just like Neil deGrasse Tyson realizes, that as much as people can make fun of him on our side, I don't like doing that because the guy inspires kids and a bunch of other people to think. I mean, even if he's wrong on his main theory, you can't expect everybody to not, like a person like him, to not believe in the Big Bang. No one's ever told him differently, so how is he supposed to know? Although he has talked about it. And that's something that I don't hear from most that go, well, there's a few people that don't believe in the Big Bang. Oh, thanks for actually mentioning it, because we have consistency arguments there. But the idea for this gentleman, I mean, even Neil deGrasse Tyson said you can't do you. They would come here. We would never see them if they had that technology to travel across the stars, and we would never. They would never see them unless we wanted that. They wanted us to see them, and there's no way. I mean, just me and you talking about it at high school level know how friggin' far Proxima Centauri is. 4 light years is a friggin' long distance.
There is, yeah.
Okay, I mean, you're leaving this heliosphere, and we have a vehicle traveling now at 32,700 miles an hour or kilometers an hour at the Voyager probe. And the reason we had to launch that at that date in 1970 is because the planets were in perfect alignment to pull it this way and make it happen, right? So it just got faster and faster as it went by these planets. But they shot that bugger out there. That thing is, I mean, we're talking about miles an hour. Divide that by 3,600. So it's going about 10 kilometers a second or something.
They said 15.
15. Okay, 15 kilometers a second. Well, light is 300,000 kilometers a second. Like there's no, I mean, it's very slow. It's half of 1% of the speed of light, which, by the way, is fucking amazing. I can't believe when you calculate that just with your high school math, how fast that thing must be going. So we know how long it would take if it was heading in the right direction to get to Proxima Centauri if we wanted to calculate that. So we know that we don't know anything that goes faster than the speed of light, as much as I would like to believe in the quantum understanding.
Yeah.
You know, of like the if one is up, the other is down type of thing that they have with the quarks or whatever quantum, and I'm cool with that. It just basically says that your idea that information can't travel faster than light is wrong. That's true, just by that alone. So,
What do you make of the WOW signal?
the WOW signal, honestly, I think it was the satellite that was passing overhead at the time. There's a Well, no. But I'm just saying that the signal itself, which was recorded, if I'm not mistaken, someone made a very good argument that it was actually what they detected was an actual satellite going over. We didn't have a lot then, by the way, just flying around in space. So, and it just passed perfectly within its sights. And if it did, it would have picked up all the signals coming from that. It wouldn't understand any of them. They'd just be incredibly powerful because they were so close. Now, I welcome you to look that up without,
Well, I did a little research on it. The only thing that really that they can tell is they don't even really know if the signal contained a message. It just
correct.
cranked the power that it was receiving.
Exactly.
So they really could have just been,
Well, remember, look how how long it took us to. I mean, they talk about it all the time how long it took us to realize that how fast quasars would spin. Or it's how fast, pulsars would spin.
Pulsars are relaxation oscillators. They're not.
Of course, right. They're not spinning. But even if you just type into Wikipedia on what's it called? They have a term for it when a pulsar stops spinning for a second. When a pulsar
Share screen.
stops spinning.
If you want to share your screen. You there?
Oh, yes. How pulsars slow down with age. Oh my God, it's so stupid. Anyway, no, I didn't actually. I didn't find it. But I know in Wikipedia. There it is, pulsar. Okay, and we use them as atomic clocks for keeping time. Which again, I don't know why we would do this. Basically, what we're doing to keep time is the exact same thing that we use in a watch.
Okay. Well, yeah.
No, we're just using a quartz watch is really just a very accurate relaxation oscillator to give you constant beats.
You think time travel is possible?
I used to say I would say no, in the conventional Einsteinian way, but there are some interesting things that happened, and I learned them from. Well, the interesting thing that happens with the sorry, I'm caught up with the pulsars again. But
It was just a question I came across.
There, pulsar glitches. There, I did find it. Okay. Okay.
Share it. You know how to do that, right?
Oh, yeah, I think I do.
Sure.
And then remind me what we were talking about.
Yeah, that's okay. No, we're just rolling along here. I don't even remember my question now.
Oh, but I had something good too. But anyway, it's okay.
Andy. He's got the memory.
He's got the memory? Good.
So you're looking at the speed. You're looking at how we detected the speed of how long it took us to detect the speed of quasars.
Yeah. The speed of what?
And then it went quasars.
I asked her about.
Oh! It was the dual slit experiment. Okay. I actually wrote that down in my sleep. There, well, not in my sleep, but I woke up and wrote it down in my book. I figured something out. There it is. Share screen. Okay. Start sharing. Okay. This is under Wikipedia. It's just called a glitch, and it refers to a sudden increase in the rotational frequency of a pulsar. So basically, they don't understand this, but basically, they have a moment of inertia of the pulsar basically coming to a stop because they think it's rotating, and then speeding back up to its normal speed. And as you can imagine, that would tear the whole thing to pieces if it could actually stop rotating.
But does it? Does it?
No. It continues right along as if nothing happened. But as a relaxation oscillator, you build up charge over time to your secondary thing you're charging to, if it's not perfect, which these aren't. These are far from perfect. These are naturally made relaxation oscillators based on plasma. They're not going to do anything right. Not the way you would engineer it anyway. You would engineer it to be way better than this. Okay, but anyway, it would build up charge on the second planet because there's two of them together rotating around each other. And then it would sort of like go, oh, no, I don't have enough to get over that hump because you're too charged right now. And so it doesn't make the hump. So to them, it goes, it stopped rotating. And then suddenly the next pulse comes through and goes, wait, you didn't go? Well, I'm going to go now because now we have twice as big of a hump and we're just pushing right over top of that one and the other one loses its charge and then it starts over again. So basically there's two different frequencies, the pulsing frequency and the charge buildup of the second capacitor. And the fact that they don't know that disturbs me.
That would come back, Neil, to your earlier where you mentioned your magnetics and your plus and that of your tract and detract of it. So now you put all that charge into that one. At some point, you may disconnect from being on the same pole. So either it pushes you away or it has to drag around, which would create that spin effect again. Like you think about it, it's all based on the same thing as we use to run electric motors, isn't it?
Yes. Well, or actually the computer that is running, the power supply of this computer is running off a very similar situation, a switch motor, where it basically has an inductor and a capacitor, and it builds up one and thrusts it through the inductor, and both of them store the energy one after another to keep that thing running, and then they use a bunch of other capacitors to even out the power supply. A linear power supply is one of those ones that uses it's a lot less powerful, but you could use it as a power supply. It's very stable, very smooth.
And it's going that quick. It's going that quick that you don't even notice that.
No, you don't notice.
Continuous.
Well, yeah, like the power that's coming into this power supply right now looks like it's continuous and even, but it's not. It's only made that way through a line of capacitors that are basically evening out because they resist changes in voltage. And as we said, every planet has those three properties: inductance, capacitance. Inductance is through it, capacitance is on it, and resistance is through it. So every planet has this, plus the inductance is creating secondary currents. and we get these loops, which created all the beautiful geography of most of the American Southwest, for example. And you get these wonderful loops, and of course you get ring currents. The sun having a ring current made of asteroids kind of makes sense. I mean, it's what you should have. And seeing that the way that this sort of comes together, and they see these glitches, or again, if you're talking about satellites, we see what's called anomalous accelerations. That's another wonderful word that they have. Just type in anomalous accelerations and a Pioneer anomaly. There's the most famous one. So is a deviation from predicted accelerations by the Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11 spacecraft after they passed about 20 astronomical units from on their trajectories out of the solar system. So they're slowing under the influences of the sun's gravity, but under very close examination of navigational data, they were found to be slowing slightly more than expected. Not really a big change if you basically are being pulled by an anode. I mean, like you said, there is gravity. No one's denying that. But there's more force being exerted on this because you keep flying. And you're picking up charge from out there, and the sun has a charge from in there. If we immediately took the Pioneer, as a betting man, if we immediately took the Pioneer and just moved it to our orbit, it would glow like a comet because it has so much charge from out there. It's like out where comets hang out. You know what I mean? And the longer they stay out there, the less charge they have. They then start coming close to the sun. The sun goes, hey, I notice that you have a different charge than me. And they're like, bling, they start glowing and setting off tails and everything else with plasma. And of course, we, being logical people, thought that that's obviously not something that we could. I mean, they're so trapped in the Victorian way of thinking, it hurts. Like, imagine the people who develop rockets are really thinking of like steampunk, but the people who design the devices that allow you to see where you're going, they're electrical engineers. They build the telescopes and everything like that. They know what they have to deal with. I mean, if I told you that the first spy satellite ever went to space failed, and do you know why it failed from? What it failed from, I guess? It failed from static electricity. They didn't insulate the machine, and they were taking pictures with it on Polaroids, more or less, and they were going to pick them up when they hit the ground. But the pictures all had giant electric marks across them because as the machine was moving in space, it created sparks and everything else because it wasn't insulated. And space is highly electric, as we've been talking about. There's a lot of charge between these bodies, and the only reason we don't see it is because it's in balance currently. If it goes out of balance, then things start discharging to one another. And the only time and of course, the only time we've actually seen it was when the only one we can all agree that we've seen is either when bolides come into the atmosphere and explode, or in the ancient past on Earth, or Shoemaker-Levy 9. When that thing plowed into Jupiter, the explosions were, well, the explosions from that were bigger than the Earth.
Yes, they were.
They were incredible. And these are rocks. Shouldn't that have been just clued you in that they're hitting with the power of a planet, and you're just like, yeah, but they're just ice. Are you out of your mind?
Paul Thornhill argued that the marks that they left afterward shows that it was an electrical event, most likely destroyed by a thunderbolt.
Oh yes. In fact, you could. One of the things that you could do is that even though we weren't seeing the explosion from our point of view, we saw them glow when they came back around. That was sure, but the actual impact we could see on the moons. Mm-hmm. The moons around Jupiter, the four big ones, we could see light up when the explosion hit. I mean, imagine how bright the explosion would be if it lit up a moon that is like 20,000 kilometers away.
Right? Yeah.
Anyway, it's those type of little things. But speaking of traveling faster than light, and your mention of time travel,
Yes.
that's where last night, or not last night, but a few nights ago, I was writing in my book. I just woke up, like I came to the conclusion, and maybe I heard it somewhere, so I don't want to claim that I'm the first person to think about it. But if light travels at the speed of light, and therefore no time travels for light when it moves from point A to point B, if that's the case, which very well may not be, but in the double slit experiment, they do the test where they shoot the electron, one electron at a time, and they notice that it seems to make a pattern on the wall of probabilities of where it would go. And you can see them as lines interfering with each other. But if you see exactly which way it goes, right or left, it only starts leaving two perfect lines. It doesn't interfere with itself. So when I also realized that it travels at the speed of light and no time travels for it, then what you're doing by grabbing a hold of the piece of light, so to speak, when you figure out which way it went, right or left, you've actually determined the entire path of it all the way back to the star it came from. So in that sense, you could communicate backwards through this light beam faster than the light beam is actually traveling.
That's interesting. I've always thought that if we did manage to go star to star, it would not be linearly.
No, I think we'd sail. I know it sounds weird, but the first way that we traveled through the ocean, and the first way, like the first time we flew or traveled through the ocean, the first time we traveled through the ocean, it was on boats, and we made the boats out of wood because we knew that wood wouldn't sink.
Right.
I know that's crazy, but we did.
But,
I mean, it's a good material, so that's fine. Worked until the cannonballs came out, and they were like, "Damn, that's dash cutting up them." So besides that, then there was when we learned to fly, we basically just hopped in a balloon in 1783 and hovered.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's the other thing that we did. Then we were like, no, I'm going to make a big friggin' engine, and we're just going to plow through the air. All right, that sounds good. And then we're going to make a giant ship, and we're going to plow through, the ocean. We don't have to follow the wind currents anymore.
Right.
Well, I think that to get to the next, whatever we learn how to get to the next star, it'll be by learning how to read those currents and of space. Travel along the tube like our star does to go to the next star. It might be easier to go up the tube to the next star 20 light years away. That would be to go 4 light years to the left. You know what I mean? Because technically the Earth is stuck to the side of this local chimney, this tube, and then Proxima Centauri is stuck to us. So we're like between Proxima Centauri and the tube. So, but if we could get onto the main current of the tube, which we're stuck to, and sort of slide up it and use the energy of the tube and the electricity that we're gained to go to the next star, it might be easier to do that than it would be to go just beside us. See what I mean? And that's what we had to deal with. I mean, if you ever looked at how hard it is to get to the Azores, I know that sounds like a weird thing to say, but to get there, you have to go down Africa, then sail outward from Africa, catching the trade wind, go around the Sargasso Sea, pretty close to the Caribbean, and then travel into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and allow that top wind to push you into the Azores. So you basically have to go like 3,000 miles out of your way to get there. Because if you just had a ship, you could go straight there. But if you have to take the sails, you have to follow the wind.
Yeah, many folks think that's the site of Atlantis,
Well, there's some weird stuff there. I mean, just the car tracks alone. I mean, especially where they went through and how they look like they were. I mean, the one that I saw, the car track that I saw that really blew my mind was in Turkey. And the reason I thought it was so amazing was because There were no hoof prints anywhere, just like there are no hoof prints in the Azores. But you see the hoof prints worn into Roman roads. Okay, even with the grooves, the footprints are still there from the horses.
Yes, I see it. Yes.
But you don't have those at either of those locations. And the one in Turkey, somebody looked at this and realized that the tires stay, or the wheels stayed flat, even though they went up and down, which means that they had independent suspension on their wheels. What the hell is that?
Yeah, I know.
That's 4,000 years ago, more, than they had independent suspension.
I'm working on a video about ancient high tech right now, and I can about the Azores. Yeah, what made that? What the hell?
And some of them go right in through the, like, down into a trench and along through the trench. Okay, by a bunch of houses, like shops.
Oh, sure.
And okay, share your screen.
Go ahead. Keep
well,
going.
No, I'm just. Yeah, there's your screen. Okay.
Yeah. Look at that. Something made that. Well, wait a minute. That might not be. You said those are current, right?
Those are current, yeah.
Where are what should I write? Tire tracks in the Azores. What would be? Was this it?
Cart tracks.
Cart track. Okay.
Because that's what they're called.
Ah, okay.
Even though they're
and they're like
not
embedded in the rock.
Yeah.
They got the other places too. Yeah, I see that.
Right off into the ocean.
Wow.
Like, what the hell is that?
What the hell is it? I never saw that before.
And they're always parallel.
Yeah. Must have been either soft ground or some real mighty heavy tires to go through rock.
That's the one in Turkey right there.
Wow, look at that.
But if you look at the tracks, you can see they have independent suspension. They're going, and they always have two of them. So it's like a vehicle.
Yeah. Were they riding over molten rock?
I don't know. I mean, I can imagine, just because we don't know what we're looking at, and we could be wrong, and this could have been something that trucks in the 1940s that just got a bunch of ashfall caused. Okay, we have to admit that we could be wrong. I don't understand what's going on. But clearly, I mean, are they like train tracks? Were they used for that?
Yeah.
You know, and why are they always parallel? Were they using them to plant things? Why they turned to stone?
Yeah, that is interesting.
Anyway,
yeah,
there's another. That's a good one right there. That shows the actual axle. So it shows you how big this wheel must have been.
No doubt, that must have been a giant vehicle.
Like it was like a bunch of people just came down to Earth from another planet and went, all right, we're gonna do the moon thing here. You know, we're gonna just explore, drive around, put flags and things.
Yeah, that's something there. You know, I'm also looking at this they say it's a 1.7 billion year old natural reactor. Did you happen to catch that?
I did. I do know about that. Yes.
Well, talk about it.
What? Well, it's.
I'm interested. I'm trying to find.
It wasn't.
Here it is. Yeah, ancient nuclear reactor.
Yeah, it's basically impressive because it would be, in my opinion, I think that if the heavy elements are made in electrical reactions, that there was probably an electrical reaction in that area that brought and made these decaying elements together of sufficient quality to actually be at a low level nuclear reaction, basically creating heat. And they kept generating heat for God knows how long, according to that. Like, well, not like that, not like I mean, they, like, if you get if you get a U-235, just a pellet of that thing, and you drain off one neutron from each of the atoms in there, the whole thing only changes weight by like 0.002 of a gram. But if you do the E equals mc squared on that, you realize how much watts you're getting out of that, or joules. And just from that little change in weight, because again, E equals mc squared. This is why people go, everything Einstein says is wrong. I'm like, are you kidding? We use that in nuclear reactors today. You know, it's not like a fictional thing, although that's impressive. And I honestly do not know how it would have worked. The only thing I could say is clearly, I mean, something happened the way that I mean, look at the the nature of the land around it, as you can see, it was very fractured.
Yes.
And scarred. I don't know why, again, but if I was a betting man, I bet you'd find evidence of hits in that area and lots of heavy metals, just the same as we have here in Sudbury, Ontario. It looks like the friggin' moon up here. In fact, they used that to imitate the moon when they did some training for the Apollo astronauts, sent them to Sudbury, Ontario.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Well, it's because it's gray and looks just like the moon. Like, and that whole area must have got struck. I mean, if you're going to have something like that, I mean, that's where all the nickel in Canada comes from. And most of the uranium actually comes from Canada. We like dig it up for you and here you go.
Yeah.
Well, not just, I mean,
They
you
said
do,
it was,
you do more with it, but we use it for nuclear fuel. So
they're calling it a natural reactor.
yeah, that just means that that somehow, this is the problem with the idea, somehow the concentrated U-235 slurry, or whatever it was, rocks, which had enough to continually begin to self-heat itself. How did that happen so quickly? And this is basically the same argument that they have with, like, when you go and look at, like the Grand Canyon, or you see other things that show evidence of something happened quickly. Like you see layers, but you also see stones in the layers below and above, and these stones are round. Well, it seems to me that these stones were falling from, as this material is building up, and these stones were falling into it from the layer above, and then eventually became that white layer above. You see, and that could only happen the same as the argument for the what's called the radio halos. The Bible thumper people love this one, but basically in rocks there are radio halos where a piece of radioactive material gets lodged into a rock. The problem is that,
what is it called? Radio what?
Radio halos. No, they're doing the radio things from galaxies. Radio halos geology, perhaps might be better.
Do you see my screen?
Yeah. Okay, I'm not seeing anything here, but
I was look.
let's just scroll down through it. They're basically, well, in a nutshell, let me just describe what they are. It's when a piece of radioactive material gets lodged into a rock. And the trouble, there's one, that orange thing. That orange one is what we're talking about.
Okay.
Okay. So that's a radio halo. A radio halo has, you could see rings, and then a dark ring, and then a really dark ring. Well, the rock, the little piece in the middle is a ring, or is a little piece in the middle is a piece of uranium, let's say. Okay. And it gets lodged into sandstone. Well, here's the problem. How is it round? How is it spherical? Because this only decays in a matter of seconds. So that means that all this rock had to be laid down in a matter of seconds.
Kind of looks
Because
like
it would be cut. Like basically, if you were looking down, it could look like this. But if you were on the side, it also looks like this. It should look like if it fell to the earth and the earth was sand at the time, then it should just sit there and be half of a radio halo. You know what I mean? Like just the bottom half, because that's where the land was. The top half shouldn't be there because there was no land at the time. It's still, but it would imply that that whole layer of rock must have fell within seconds.
You know, it has the look of a target, which reminds me of a Birkeland current with the
Actually, it kind of is,
radio rings there.
because the radiation that's coming off it, the hard radiation, burns the layers around it.
Mhm.
But yeah, you would, and the reason it's a Bible thumper thing is because they try to say, well, this proves that this rock was made, and therefore the Earth is only 6,000 years old, which of course I don't agree with.
Well, Venus might be
But
that old.
there's some more, I think.
Yeah, radio
right
halos.
there. Yeah.
Well, Venus is about that old.
Well, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. But that doesn't mean that the Earth actually is, and that's why I have problems with that. But like I said, you're dealing with radio, those type of things. It still implies that the Earth, that piece of rock at least, fell relatively quickly and was welded down.
Yes.
You not just by volcanic reasons, which we do know happens, but
where did it fall off of, you think? Where did it come from?
it was removed either from a nearby passing planet or the Earth itself and deposited elsewhere on Earth. In fact, I think a lot of stuff was pulled off of the American Southwest and dropped on top of Canada. We have an incredible amount of vegetation up here, like, and there's so much water. I think that's from the obviously the the whole place was basically a swamp up north because the water was being pulled to the north by Saturn, I think, and as material could get ripped off of the ground during some of these hits along the equator, some of it would go to the other body, and some of it would follow the currents and drop onto Canada. You get deposits of just loose dirt. It didn't weld anymore because it was cold up here. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
it didn't weld, but down there she welded solid. But that's why we have that giant. There's that giant dinosaur that we found that was almost perfect.
Really? When was that?
Just a few years ago. It's Ankylosaurus or something, one of the ones with the shells on it, like the precursor to the turtle. And it was found just underneath the tar sands. Yeah, that's one right there. That guy. That's the actual fossil. You're looking at the actual fossil.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think I've seen it before.
But it's crushed. It's like a ton of dirt just landed on top of its back. It didn't burn it though. You see what I mean? Yeah, there it is, right there.
That's right.
It didn't. It like cooked it. Like the rock. I mean, the sand must have been hot, but not hot enough to kill it. And of course, it was just buried alive underneath this giant fall of crap. Here's it right there. Well, look at it. Yeah, look. There's one.
Looks like it hurt.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
The back is crushed.
It's almost like an animal skin rug, a dinosaur skin rug.
Well, and that starts putting things in perspective, though, because as much as we might think that is like literally millions of years old, well, if the strikes on the American Southwest, if I'm right, the strikes in the American Southwest were done within human memory, then that dinosaur died within human memory.
Man, could you imagine seeing something that freaking huge coming after you? Oh, God.
I'm just happy it's a herbivore.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it kind of looks a little.
See, look, there's a face. There's its face right there, the number 5 thing.
Yeah.
There's its face again.
Yeah.
See, look at it. I mean, you can almost see its eyes. I mean, it's crazy. And it's
recently.
Yeah, just a few years ago. I mean, maybe as much as 10 now, but.
What do you suppose flattened it out?
A bunch of dirt.
Oh, okay. So.
Well, remember, this was found at the oil sands. See, we have the tar sands up north.
Yeah.
So all up north from you, and they're basically where we rip up the land with all the dirt in it, with the oil in it, and then we just put it through a giant filter and get the sand out of it.
I see.
So, but there's layers. Like you have to. The layer of oil is on top of some hard dirt earth where they found that guy. Okay, so the hard ground is solid, and the oil couldn't get through it. So the oil built up underneath, and the sand also fell at the same time. That's what's really weird. You see, this is where they don't know how this happened, and we're just ripping it up and just turning it into oil.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be a dick about it. I mean, obviously we need that, and people need oil and stuff like that. But it's just interesting that at the same time that something might have been, let's say, falling from a nearby planet like Titan, hydrocarbons were raining down along with a bunch of dirt while the Earth was getting struck by something and land was getting ripped up to the south of us.
Yeah, Andy Hall calls it barrier discharge, where thousands of lightning bolts go off at the same time in the whole continent.
Of course.
Area.
Yeah, well, see.
Look at the size of the necks. Jesus. Somebody like Ted says, how could they hold their necks up? They had to be less gravity. Had to be. Just, it is impossible. 35,000 torque tons. That's what he said.
Pounds.
Yeah, torque pounds, yeah.
But still, that's just an incredible amount. The cool thing it tells us is they had lots of food, and the gravity was different. Just by looking at a dinosaur.
They never talk about that.
Well, actually, they did. See, this is very interesting. This is very interesting. We, you might not remember this. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. The thing that made the scene for them justifying how fast the T-Rex could run in the movie Jurassic Park was because they found footprints that said it was running about 35 miles an hour. And then all of that disappeared, and now they say it can only run at 11 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And I'm like, didn't you have footprints that prove this?
Right.
Like, so are you telling me the footprints are wrong or your math is wrong? Because I'll bet the math is wrong compared to the footprints. Not trying to be a wiener on that, but think about it. That's footprints. Did you think it was just a couple legs running with carrying nothing, no body? Like, how was it moving that fast then?
Oh yeah, I remember. Weren't they trying to forward the hypothesis that Tyrannosaurus was a scavenger instead of a hunter?
Stupid.
Well, it could be both. I know lions scavenge, but they also kill too. You know, so.
Well, if you're getting really into weird animals, clearly you have to talk to. You have to talk about the cheetahs. That's my favorite.
They're clones, every one of them.
Mm.
They must have been. I think that they were, made to be pets.
I think they were too. I think the way they did it, if I was a betting man and they didn't have genetic engineering, which they didn't, okay. I mean, let's just say that they did not have genetic engineering. Okay. The ancient Egyptians didn't have genetic engineering.
They're all twins. Exact twins.
What they would do then, how would you do that? How would you make a cheetah, which is a half cat, half dog?
Yep.
First, you'd mate the animals together. Then they would have a litter, okay, which they would be like, if you could, then you have to find two that were twins from the same egg, okay? Then kill all the other animals off and mate only those two together forever. That means that every single animal is a clone because they have the exact same DNA because they're from the same exact two animals.
Yeah.
Because they were identical twins.
Someone in the ancient times bred them to be pets in Egypt, I think.
Well, they're incredibly loyal. They don't attack humans.
Nope.
And they can run faster than anything on the planet. That tells me that they're engineered.
Absolutely, I agree. Because they almost kind of look a little bit like a greyhound.
They are.
Yeah.
That's the fur on their bodies is dog fur. They do not have extendable claws. They have dog feet and a dog brain. Yep. They are dogs, but also cats.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean,
in my opinion,
yeah.
And I could be I'm willing to accept anything, but at the same time, these guys clearly, like, as much as we like to think that we know everything, what we have lost in the world of husbandry over the last 100 years will shock us. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember, like, breeding, like, no, we're going to get those two cows to mate. Why? Because this one has a heart condition. I'm like, that's what my grandfather was saying. So they knew what they were doing. They were controlling these animals and how they bred on a farm. Well, my God, if you owned a kingdom, you certainly would. Especially if you could actually, you'd be making animals all the time. And remember, animals will fuck anything. The first time a leopard got screwed by a dog and then suddenly birthed a bunch of dog cats, and they were like, we should do something with these. No. Yeah. That's complete speculation. I'm just saying, I mean, a dog will hump a friendly looking tree. Okay.
No doubt.
So, I mean, I'm just trying to say that there's a lot of you must have seen macroevolution.net where he shows pictures of like dog cows and stuff.
No, I've never seen that.
No, they're there. They're there.
Really?
Yeah, here, let me
go ahead, take over. Share your screen.
I'll just it's just macroevolution.net, I think. Yeah.
I'll stop sharing.
Well, no, it's I'll just
I'd like to see what you're looking at.
Yeah, Neil, and from what I understand of that, what you're talking about, the main thing in getting that breeding to happen is getting the chromosomes at the right, even chromosomes.
Really?
Well, yeah, like
and then to let it breed on the next time, you need even, so it's your chromosomes that then make up through to your genetics.
Well, I think that I know this sounds weird to take it from him, but I think of George Carlin when he said, he was talking about life and conception and all that stuff and the politics around it. And he goes, you know what I think? I think life is a continuous process. It just keeps rolling along,
Yep.
And we screwed everything. And I don't mean us. I mean, as beings on this planet, everything has screwed everything. And the creatures that we have made out of that's I think the explanation for. They always have they have no problem saying, well, we know how everything died. They die in 24 million year cycles. This thing came in and boom, took out 99.8% of all life on the planet. And then there was a mass speciation and a whole whack of new species were born. And your question instantly becomes, how'd that happen? And they go, we don't know. Yeah. Well, I think the easiest answer is we didn't kill off the weirdos anymore. When you have to create the next species or the next thing, if it's a disaster, you'll take anything, even if it only has one arm. You need people to live, to continue on. That's not not people, but beings, whatever being you are. Like you're a monkey, you need more monkeys. If you're a cat, you need more cats. So you need to get through that. And if you happen to get impregnated by something weird, we just didn't kill it off. They didn't kill it off because they needed it. Oh, you look like a dog, but you know what? I'm going to keep you anyway.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you got to get all the freaks out.
Well,
today we do.
I've often said to Greg Neil, if we found an alien, some weird alien thing on a planet tomorrow, right? What would be one of the first things we do to it or with it?
Well, it depends if it talks back and seem to have the ability to even understand what you're talking about.
That's the way humans are. What is it?
I don't think it's a matter of humans. I think it's a matter of everything. I think that
that's right. One of the first things we'd try and do is fuck it.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, in this particular website here, okay. Look at this. Okay.
If it was hostile to that, then we'd kill it.
Well, that's the thing. There you go. The other question is, why didn't we kill off the weird ones? Because if you have something that's born weird today, we just don't tolerate it. If it's a cow that's born weird and has a weird face or a weird head, we just kill it. That's the end of that. Don't have to worry about it anymore. And we'll just chop it up and feed it to the pigs. And it's done. Wash your hands, all done. But if during those times when you just got hit by a giant asteroid from space or something, you might be a little bit, willing to go, okay, you can live.
Yeah, when we're speaking of that, it reminds me, I used to watch Big Cat Diary when, about 10 years ago. I loved that show, but they took it off the air. But anyways, in that show, they were talking about that every once in a while in a herd, an albino will be born, and they castigated. They won't accept it.
Yeah. No. I mean, that's how weird we were. But if you go back in time, I mean, look at all the stories of Zeus came down, turned into a cow, and banged some chick.
I meant the rest of the herd will do something.
No. I get that.
Out. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the way we are, unless we can't be.
Yeah.
No, it's true.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't want weakness in your tribe. Yeah. Well, different, but different usually means bad. Usually, well, not just fear, but think about just the what was it? The Nazis and the people from Greece tossing disabled people off cliffs because fuck them.
Yeah, that's too bad. That's going.
But that's weakening the tribe, and that's what they don't want if that thing breeds.
I get it.
Now, I don't agree with that, obviously. Potentially, of course. They don't understand that. They think that if you're like that you're going to make more people like that.
Yeah.
But that's because they're dumb. They don't understand. They don't understand.
So,
no, of course it's not true. But they're ancients. The Nazis were assholes, but the ancients were just just like, well, if, like, think about how they thought of things. Well, you have your father's eyes, you have your mother's hair, blah, 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 blah. Oh, well, if your father's that thing, you're going to have no leg. We don't need that. We don't need one-legged people in a population here. None of that. You might as well be a.
Speaking of freaks, what's your take?
Speaking of freaks,
yeah, what's your like human nature and stuff? The ones the freakiest things for me are all of these cryptids that are supposed to be around. Now, you think that might be some kind of mad scientist experiment gone wrong, or is it just?
Well, look at my page. Or... Look at the page right here. Okay, look at that dog cow.
Yeah, the dog cow, amazing.
That's a cow and a dog put together.
Yeah.
Look at the tongue on it.
Yeah.
And it has a dog brain because it's acting like a dog. See, you can tell where the brain, the severance is right on the neck. You notice that with all animals like ligers and tyons. So a liger is a male lion, female tiger, I think, and the tyons the other way around. But they are completely different animals because it's the head and the male and the growth genes that come from certain ones that make the ligers so big. But this is giving you an idea. Oh, there you go. See?
Oh God!
See, like I told you, they do anything.
He's screwing a cow.
Yeah,
oh my God!
But this is what
cow just lays there and lets him do it.
He doesn't care.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Well, that's what I mean. And if you go look at mammalian hybrids, of course, you get the leopard and lioness.
They're all sterile too, right?
No. That's the lie. We are told because of mules that they're sterile. Mules have given birth before. It's just really hard. Guess what else? Guess who else is really hard at giving birth?
Pandas?
Humans.
Oh. Well, yeah, it is a.
We don't make babies that nearly like any other animal. We are completely, and the babies we make, they're completely friggin' useless. You can't do anything with them until they're fucking 6 years old. Can barely walk. And I'm not trying to be mad at the kids or something, but imagine how dangerous that is. If we weren't smart, we're just prey.
Yeah.
With whiny brats that are going to get us all killed. Okay, we had to be smart.
Yeah. The baby lion knows to keep
quiet. But a lot of birds similar. They will raise their chicks, similar sort of. But it's just not as long a period, is it, in the lifetime of the bird? Like if you take a human up until the Second World War, our life cycle as a whole, we had a lot of people die before they were 20 sort of thing. So well, look at humans and you put it together. On a life, you spent like 20% of your life nurturing 25% of your lifetime nurturing the next generation. Yeah, and that basically gives us. Yeah, that makes it better. We've got a big investment in that.
Well, yes, and that's why there's certain things that is very hard for us to let go as a species. Like, for example, men want to protect and want to fight and want to train to do that. And we've kind of emasculated them. In another sense, women are trained biologically. I mean, when I say trained, I mean like evolutionarily trained, not, but they're trained to nurture children. Even their hips are easier to carry children, because it's easier to carry children, and all this kind of thing that we watch them and we protect them and then we go hunting. All of this is because of, and we just we're doing very poorly right now, it seems, on trying to understand we don't have to do that anymore. But we need outlets for it, which is why video games are so popular, I assume. I mean, it used to be baseball games and everything else and those kind of things, camaraderie, football, training, all that kind of stuff, which was great. But, you know, now that I look at it, and, oh, that's another one that does it. Dolphins. Dolphins will have,
Yep.
you know, with anyone. But see, these are all different genuses, but they're all mixed with another animal. And they've been spotted. So, and this is an example of what I mean by that. So this happens a lot more than we like to admit. There's a zebron, a European bison, and a cattle combined. We just don't let them. But you see what I mean? And they're not sterile. So, I mean, it could explain why we have 17 different types of sperm, but only one sperm is the one that can impregnate a thing. I would propose, probably they looked into it, that's the one that can impregnate another human. But we are probably made up of 17 different creatures over time.
Different bear.
Now, and of course, remember when I'm talking about this, when I'm talking about 17 different creatures, we're not amalgamating all at once. I think our last two were likely some sort of chimpanzee creature and a pig.
Yeah. What if it was the other way though?
I don't know.
Came from
No, I just say
it
the last one,
Godzilla.
whatever. But there's tons of other creatures that have made both the pig and the thing over time.
Yeah.
You know, different speciation events over time, and eventually this last one was us, and they didn't kill us. Either the monkeys probably didn't kill us. Great. And that's probably why we have this thing sticking out of our face. Our skin color, really. Our skin, the fact that we have skin like that, like that's weird. I mean, we practically need clothes. You know, unless we live down in sub-Saharan Africa, which is where we probably started.
What do you think
Well,
of those?
yeah.
You think there might have been
Everything is-
ancient stuff going on with like you see all those animals, half animal, half man, all that stuff.
Well, that's another thing.
What do they call them? Centaurs?
No. Oh, actually, you know, the weirdest one that I thought was very interesting when they mentioned it was, I don't think this is the correct name, but I'm going to use this word anyway. I know it's not. It's cenotaph. I know that's like an actual rock object or something, but they were dog-human hybrids with dog heads and human bodies.
Oh wow! Yeah, the dog man.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. What would happen if, like, because like you said, the change is on the neck. Like right there, right around your clavicle bones. Everything, like another gentleman who happened to noticed that the top part of your head has an imitation in the rest of your body. Like your like the shape of your eye sockets and everything like that, they're sort of fit onto your skeleton somewhere. Your eyeballs and your heart are very similar. And he noted this type of thing. Our guts and our brain are very similar. And we noticed this recently too. And that's because when you combine animals, you get properties of one in the body and properties of the head in the other, more or less, with some crossover, obviously. And so, yeah, I mean, if we were just talking about what we were talking about earlier, okay, and you just have to think about, and I don't want to because it's kind of gross, but if you just really want to think about it, just go, so a hillbilly and a dog.
Yeah.
It's a cold night.
Oh,
Just
God.
leave it at that, okay? So we leave it at that. Then what comes out of that union is now running off in the woods somewhere.
That's It's abominable.
Potential.
No, I'm talking completely
potential.
theoretical
Yeah.
and totally full of crap.
And then you get.
Like I'm saying, like I could be.
Potential.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm talking over you.
What I say is, you have what you said, and then it runs off into the bush, and then you have a theoretical potential.
Yes, of something. Now, the next time it mates with a dog, and it's even more dog-like. Like it's mated with a wolf, and now you have this furry man-like creature running down the road, chasing you, like some of those videos I've seen.
Yeah, that big.
Because those are the ones that scare the crap out of me. I'm not scared of the ones who talk about demons. I'm not scared of, because usually when I see stuff like that, they go like the supernatural stuff. I mean, you could see a lot of things, especially plasmoids and everything else, and lights and everything else. Okay. But an actual video of a creature chasing after you, that looks really scary. And the way they describe them, as I personally think that if they were seeing anything, they weren't transforming. They were just standing up because they could. Because they're part of them. As much as I can't believe I'm even going to say these words. Okay. In a way, think of it like the slave trade. Think of it like the slave trade and how they used to judge how far, like if you had white blood in you, you were called, you had a certain name. And if you, depending on how far away you were, you had different generations of people and they had different names to separate them. Well, if you think along those lines, which I don't want to do, but if you think about along those lines as animals, well, they're going to live with the dogs. Okay. They're not living with, and some of them might be breeding with each other. And who knows if they even could.
Well, let's go to this then, Neil. If you have a look at it, from what I understand in the US, if you had European,
Australia has some weird stories too.
The Indian, hang on. But the simple one is if you had, yes, you're right. But if you had a European mate with an Indian, well then the offspring the Indian didn't want, and the offspring the European didn't want. So they basically had to go off into their own little, create their own little and start.
Actually, that's why we have the
finding similar people and try and make something out of it. And yes, we have the same thing out here where we had that the same, and that's been a common theme. And that's like what when you were describing before with the dog, it would be more. Well, it would run off into the wolf, into the.
Well, the dog wouldn't want it. The guy wouldn't take it.
Wouldn't necessarily find another dog or the other side. It may find something totally different, but then allowed it into its camp, so to speak. And then from there, so it wouldn't be just going back into itself. It would be mixing all around, and then something sort of stronger, I suppose you could say, would eventually come out of it.
Well, which would I wasn't even thinking about
against that.
Well, it's. I mean, it just seems natural in a way. And I mean, from its point of view, and the fact that and you hear talk about some of these things being able to lure people away. Well, of course they could lure people away. They have voices, just like a parrot. You know what I mean? Like they don't know what they're saying, but if you can hear it and they can hear it and they can sort of make that voice, well, that's creepy ass shit. You know what I mean? Like, so I can picture this. Now, of course, we're probably giving nightmare fuel to anyone who's listening to this, but I don't honestly know about any of the cryptid stuff. I think though that just because we were talking about evolution in that sort of same sort of sense, and if we ascribe his theories to today, and we can picture, I don't want to picture lonely Bushmen, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what would start this whole thing running off, but Yeah. I mean, animals do seem to intermingle more than we think.
Yeah, so that makes sense really, because there's legends and lores of these kind of creatures all over the world.
And not all of them ascribe to any deities in the skies. Like we've taught, like as
Yeah,
much as
right.
if I'm talking about, like, if we're talking about gods in the way that we talk about gods and knowing what we know now and planets and the glory of God being auroras and stuff and just blinding lights and beautiful shit, great. But they're sort of discussed in the same way as you do threats, and in a way that um, doesn't give them any sort of holiness about them. Like there's no admiration. Like they had, I mean, the Egyptians had a god of crocodiles, for F's sakes.
Yes.
So they appreciated crocodiles more than they appreciated the dogmen. Does that tell you how much they didn't like them? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, they have a god of crocodiles, but no, we're not giving a god to that thing. That thing's an abomination. Kill it.
Yeah, no doubt if they're real. Yeah, I mean, there's also this thing called the rake. Have you ever heard of it?
Well, besides the implement or the insult in the 18th century, no.
Well, yeah, I think it's a little far, but apparently they caught this certain creature on camera. It's kind of hard to fake that. I don't know.
Well, I will say that they will get better at it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
we didn't actually finish one of the
Yeah, go
things
ahead.
that I wanted to
Sorry.
point out. No, this is good.
Yeah.
It just brings this whole thing around because it's getting on to 2 hours, and I
Yeah.
was thinking that
Yeah.
what
So
we were
much for Greg's video.
Oh no, it's okay, man.
I'm
People
sorry.
like this stuff. No, I love talking about this stuff.
But
We can do it
No,
like an
no, I'm just
universe.
laughing, Greg.
Yeah, I know.
Keep going.
We always get off sidetracked on some crazy stuff.
Well, now I've lost what I was going to say.
Oh shit.
It's okay.
Okay.
Well, something that you remembered that you were going to tell us earlier that.
Yeah,
You just remember.
it was about it was one of your questions. I just can't remember it now.
Right?
No, like
Time travel? No.
no, it wasn't time travel. It was God, now I can't even remember. I was trying to answer a question, but now I can't remember the question.
Ah shit. I'm sorry.
No, it was the reason why you
Well,
brought
can we
me
go
on.
back a little bit? Can we go back a little bit while you're talking that, and the question might come? So,
well, we talked about
over
the
the time you
dinosaur.
hear them talking about. Yeah.
Oh no, we were
but
talking
over
about.
the years.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go, Neil. You go, Neil. And you'll remember the question.
We were talking about the dinosaur, then we got to talking about hybrids.
Right, but that was answering a question that you had regarding something else. But it was the something else. It wasn't time travel. It wasn't necessarily. Oh, it was von Braun.
Ah, okay, yeah, von
Right,
Braun.
and they basically his secretary had said this.
Yes.
This should amp it up. We completely went off topic, but basically, she said they were going to fake an alien invasion, and as we know, we can't do that. As we talked about, for the reasons it's just too far to travel. Why would they do it? Why would they come here? How would they know? Blah 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 blah. Lots of things that took us from the 1960s expectation of what traveling through space was and the real reality of what we have. So moving that, it seems that they might be trying to set us up for an alien invasion, but it has to come through a dimension. It has to come through or inside the Earth itself. It has to be something that, because they know that we won't buy it if it's coming from outer space. I mean, we bought the War of the Worlds on the radio, but that's it. We won't buy a real War of the Worlds. I mean, we don't believe that there's life on Mars, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So, but then there has been this whole attention to multiverses and the whole attention of, you know, the alien attack in Avengers was coming through a portal in space. The attack of the, what was it called, Pacific Rim, was another portal that was coming through the, wherever they send these giant dinosaurs from, or whatever. You see what I mean? Like, it seems that that's the kind of thing that they'd be more interested in selling now, because they can't sell that one.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, Neil,
maybe that's what this guy
gonna,
Philip is into, is trying to sell that CIA version.
Oh, I see.
That's just a thought.
I was gonna ask on that earlier. So they talk dimensions, right? But what about if it was more a frequency type instead of, you know, like a fixed dimension?
Like
so it's within a frequency. Yeah, you know, so and that would be more.
That right there is literally the most scariest thing. I mean, anytime you bring up those things, you immediately bring up schisms. The Star Trek: The Next Generation episode, where they were having people that were out of phase, who were making all the clicking sounds and abducting them and taking them to another dimension to work on them in a table. And also that Voyager episode where only 7 of 9 could see the alien implants that were put in everybody's head, but they were invisible to everyone else.
Yeah.
That's the horrifying. That scares me.
That scares me. It's more a frequency where you get that than, you know.
Well, as described by someone else.
To create. You need the frequency to create for one of it, the portal to the next frequency position where that was occurring, which you could then call a dimension, I suppose.
But again, we don't have any technology that can do that. Like, that means there's no metal. There's no metal or combination of metals or properties or rocks or anything that has been able to produce that effect of basically warping space and time. Even our ideas of black holes are based off magnets. You know, like, it's not, I mean, we're using giant super colliders, which are just basically giant pieces of electricity and magnets sending things around in a giant circle. You know, like, so we haven't busted through the whole of time and space there. And if it was going to happen anywhere, it would probably be there. So,
well, the other thing is, Neil, as an example, if you get an old cast iron engine block and you get a sledgehammer and tape to it, eventually you'll break it, but it will just break. But if you get, say, a hammer and it's just tap, 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 eventually you'll be able to guide cracks through it, right? Which comes down to the frequency of the two different ways you're applying the pressure to break it. If you get where I'm coming from.
Oh no, I know exactly where you're coming from. This is literally, not figuratively, literally the plot line of Fringe.
Well, to destroy something, I think it was Tesla.
It's a great show, and yes, it was Tesla. I was
going
to bring that up
that he could crack the Earth in half just by using resonance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he did the thing with that building too.
Yeah, but the other thing it comes down to is we view things in a timeline of about 35 years. And that's one of the things that came out too with what you mentioned earlier in the Voyager probes, whereby they're going back through realms of stuff that was done in the 1970s and trying to re-understand it and what it meant, because they've moved on so far with the modern computering systems and that. So they've got to relearn the past to do changes to try and keep these things running that little bit longer and get the data, etc.
Yep.
And it comes down to, I think the biggest thing is that we don't commit through our generation. The only thing we can commit to through generations is our dislike for some group or somebody. right? But to sit down and say we're going to do this project that'll take two or 300 years to do seems to be no one could ever put that on the agenda now.
Well, it's
right?
only because it cannot be. No. I think we
Vision.
could just as much as thank God the Russians solved the Chernobyl incident. One of the situations that we have is it has to be one of three things. It has to be admiration for a god or deity. Then we will build big things. If it's not admiration for a god or deity, it would be to save our lives. We love that one too. We will build giant nuclear bombs to save our lives, or walls, like Great Wall of China. Or number three, it's going to make us a lot of money.
Yep.
If it's not at least one of those three things, we aren't going to any other planets.
Right.
That's what I agree with you.
As sad as that sounds. Now, if we polluted the planet, or aliens were saying they're attacking from dimensions, but if they did it wrong, we would never believe them again. We'd kill them. I mean, in a figurative or literal sense, depending on how sharp our guillotines are. But we wouldn't be happy. I'll tell you that. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, if the world leaders all got together and said, "Okay, we're lying to you to bring the world together," no, nothing good can come from a lie. Like, it has to be like a genuine threat of.
What would you stand from with?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Would you stand for the world leaders with? What are you telling us? What are you telling us that we don't already know? You get what I mean, Neil? We know they lie.
Yeah, of course, exactly. But some people think that there's conspiracies and everything. I mean, some people think about, like, they have a thing against global warming. I'm like, well, the reason I'm not pushing back on global warming or climate change or whatever the freak they call it is because it's going to encourage people to think of the earth and make it better. And I won't be around to care. No, really, it's not going to really affect the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Even if it turns out to be wrong, at least they're thinking. And no one seems to be, well, obviously there's some people that would say there's some manipulation of data, but a lot of people don't think that. So I say, go ahead. No, I'd like to see clean beaches. I would love to see bigger canals. I want to see better mega project. Prepare for the future. I don't want to see any more NOLA flooding. Like, let's fix all that kind of crap. And clean up a bunch of things. Can't be that bad. It's also people who talk about renewable energy like it's a bad thing. You do know that dams have existed for a lot longer than electricity. Like, no, that can never work. What are you talking about?
And
do you have water? Well, you get that water to fall, and then magic comes.
Well, it is a battery.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. But I'm just saying that. I don't believe in the I have some serious doubts about the electric revolution, just simply because that's a lot of lithium, and that's a lot of batteries.
Yeah, that's dirty in itself.
So is uranium mining. Let's not knock ourselves, okay? But so is oil mining. It's all dirty. But there's some parts. I mean, just they're moving it to these places that are mineral rich, and these places happen to be in Africa, and now you have people getting kicked off land, and I'm like, nothing's good. You can't, nothing's perfect. I hate it.
The thing I think, Neil, with the climate, clean energy debate that's got out of control is it's been monetarized too greatly. So it's more about the money now, which is the wealth and power of individuals,
Oh yeah, I mean,
I'll
can you
say,
believe that people
that
have cars
the
that go for
ultimate
80,000?
outcome, um,
No, it just costs 80,000 to buy a car. Like, what are you
Yeah,
talking
that's
about?
crazy.
yeah,
Everything's
yeah. So I see that there's so many in them leadership positions are saying, oh, the good times are over. Your living standards all, which has been happening, I think, since the 70s.
Yeah, but that's not
Your living
that's not the
standards have to
point.
drop. Your living standards have to drop, and we see that now with housing and the cost of housing. You know, of what a person,
Yeah, no, I think they're trying to. They're fucking.
function of a person's income they use for a house.
No,
Which when you
you're
look at it,
absolutely
your
right.
income is your lifetime.
No, you are
Right?
absolutely right. I have
And
a
I
terrible idea about like what they're doing because of the way that they're pushing through it seemingly like because this is not true. I mean, these guys are super ultra mega rich. I mean, they shouldn't be that rich. I mean,
that's
at a
right.
certain point, don't get me wrong, I'm all for free enterprise and I'm not a communist or anything, but at a certain point, you should get a t-shirt and a hat that says, I've won capitalism, take your $1 billion and go.
Yeah.
You know, or
Yeah.
whatever. Like, because there's no reason why. I mean, there are private people who are launching spaceships. This is ridiculous. Like, I mean, in my head, I'm thinking of NASA, and I'm yeah, okay, sure, but I mean, you're now. I mean, he just put 4,300 pieces of plastic in space. I mean, oh my God, that's so dangerous. I mean, these things are traveling faster than bullets. How are you going to? I mean, these things. You're going to kill your. We might block ourselves off from going to space before we even get the technology to go to space.
Yeah,
500,000
big
pieces
cleanup
of
bill to
junk
get there.
already up there.
That's what I mean. I mean, it could turn. If there was ever a space war, and we start blowing satellites up, it's over.
Wow,
I
that's
mean,
one of the first things that would happen if we got into a real blow with, say, the Chinese and the Russians.
Right. So we start blowing
That
up
would be one
satellites.
of the
Now
first,
there's
and you know who would start blowing them up first, don't you? We would,
yeah.
right? You know, like, and then of course
how are we going to launch a spaceship into orbit that is armored? Like,
but I always remember one.
I mean, these things are going to hit you like a paint fleck will hit you at like the force of a bowling ball going at 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
See, I always remember, Neil, one night you and I were talking, and Greg came up with the old world had to find and develop the new world because the old world had run out of resources, right? And when you look at it, that's really what happened when the Americas, Australia, and all those places were colonised. All of a sudden, you had all this new free wealth in minerals that could produce all these different metals, and you had huge amounts of timber.
Yeah.
Now we've got to the point getting back to your climate. It's not so much you need to grow a lot of trees to sort of help clean up the atmosphere, but we need to grow a lot of trees because we need the timber to replace our old aging infrastructure.
Yeah,
you know, and everybody forgets to grow a good tree like the trees that we can have here, and I know in the Americas and that you have. You're looking at a 150-year cycle, you know, to minimum. And, you know, like we cut all those trees down and built those rail systems, etc., right, over about a 100-year period. But we use the timber quicker than we can replace it. And so instead of thinking, is this the best way to use it, we just continue to go on with it. So, all right, now they're replacing timber where they can with concrete. But, of course, we know concrete is very energy intensive to produce. and yeah, its lifetime's a bit longer, but
Actually,
still,
good news. This just happened yesterday. I heard the announcement that they had solved Roman concrete. They can now make Roman concrete again.
Good.
Self-healing concrete that will repair itself if it gets damaged. I mean, I just think that's a great thing. I mean, regarding the timber problem, I think we should really start investing in hemp. I don't mean in it. I mean not that kind of stuff. I mean the stuff with thick stalks, stuff you don't smoke. But we can grow that each year. It's just a much better use of materials and land to grow.
But we're not prepared to experiment. We're not prepared to experiment anymore with that something may fail. So
that is a very weird thing. The Dutch don't have that problem.
You know, because we could start to reverse desertification.
Yep.
But no one can agree on it. And again, it always comes down to, when you dig right into it, who's going to control it and who's going to make the money out.
Of course.
But, you know, we could reverse a lot of those things. And sure, you're looking at 150 year cycle of doing it, but then all of a sudden you're reproducing everything that gave us our wealth right up, you know, till now, you know. Yeah, you reproduce, you're going to have a supply of it again to do it.
Well, we will have to, I mean, let's be honest. We will have to switch to hemp for building materials in this country, even though we have tons of trees, but because it will be cheaper. And the trees, well, I mean, it's legal here, so lucky us. But that's, with that legality comes no restrictions on trying. You know, we've opened up a commercial avenue that you can, if you want to make hemp flapjacks, you can do that. You want maple syrup mixed with hemp seeds? Here you go. You want, you know, like what I mean? Like, you go nuts. It's legal. You know, period. Just like alcohol, cooking sharry now.
Yeah, you can turn those fibers into materials as strong as steel and timber, right? And like I say, the growth of it, like 1-2 years, you're able to be using it. Where I'm not sure over there, but I know out here, pine trees that they grow now to build housing with, they're grown somewhere around 20-25 years.
That's what I was going to say.
But they're really soft and sappy.
Yep.
They're really soft and sappy. So, and they'll tell you the houses aren't designed to last more than about, you know, structurally, they're about 35 years. You know, you see the roofs dipping and that in them relatively not many years after they've been built. Right? So
I'm glad I don't have that problem.
So when you look at it like this,
well, no, I mean, the standards are pretty freaking high here. I mean, not like England high, but you know, like the like, because it's cold here, you have to have so much insulation. You can't sell a house without it, you know, type of thing. But yeah, we do have some problems. We've had some people trying to rip people off and stuff, and I don't want to get into it. But long story short, it's about the money. Yeah, it's been a long time anyway. Oh, so basically what we've figured out is the world sucks and it revolves around money. Okay, great. We'll have another show sometime.
Which we invented to control people.
All an extension of the priesthood. And banks are an extension of minds. What a great idea.
Yeah.
Actually, that is a good idea. Things haven't changed much.
No. Well, Ted says that. Ted says, what's changed in the last 4,000 years? And when you think about it, not really a real lot.
I mean, the last collapse was
Still
when
who-
we ran out of when we couldn't get the tin from one place and the copper from another place, so we could have bronze, and that created the Bronze Age collapse. Just that that disturbance in the Mediterranean caused all that. So, God knows how much people like to think it's like totally awesome. Like, it's not. There are some problems.
Well, it is pretty awesome why it works. It is pretty awesome why it works, and it is pretty awesome why you get everybody to keep it working. But it does take a lot to keep it working.
Well, yeah,
You
and
know,
the thing is that we know countries that are doing it. Like I pointed out, like what is it? The Scandinavian countries and Denmark are often like, no, we're going to do this, and we need a machine. How big is a machine? I don't know. It has to be big enough to cut the world in half. Okay, we're going to build that. We're going to just, and go build a bunch of levees. We're going to put all this giant infrastructure in, and they know what they're doing, and yay. And I see we do similar things with because if I was in charge of North America, then I would make Canada the energy producer. It would just basically be up in Quebec. We have walled off an entire 180-mile around lake, which is a crater, and we put a bunch of power generation plants in front of it. Each of them about 6,000 megawatts or something like that, or whatever, and they're all lined up there. And the extra power we just send down to like New York, stuff like that. So with all the water we have, and we've already done the building of the lake, just put more of them in there and supply the power to the entire North America. Like, that would be what we should be doing. I mean,
yep.
I mean, if we were thinking, because then it would free up all the infrastructure of all these nuclear plants, and everything else in North America could be gone. Coal plants be gone, and as long as we can get the wires are at 720,000 volts, so they're basically using no current to transport this, so they're not even getting hot, and they're just cruising at high voltage down these lines, and we could power all of North America, have a great time while doing it. And who would care then about cars? Because with all the coal plants being gone, could you imagine doing that in China too? Just coal plants are all gone, just using dams. Good ones, not the ones that have massive catastrophes that I get to see on YouTube, but other ones.
Yeah.
Because of course, just like that's what happens when you go from communist to capitalist. Guess what? People's hands need to be greased now. And so they take the money and use bad construction methods, and oops, the dam failed. Oops. Well, that's only a bunch of people we didn't need anyway. Because who cares? It feels so rude to say it,
someone I was listening to the other day was saying, we need to stop training people to be bankers, and we need to start training people to be engineers. But then in reality, what we need to do is bring back the technical education system that we got rid of in the 80s.
For no good reason.
And basically, so, that's right, because we're a smart society now, we don't need that.
Right.
That's what they said. They bring back that system where everybody's taught when they're young how to use basic power tools and all that stuff. So they do it.
I'm 50 years old. No, look at this. I'm an engineer. I'm 50 years old. I am capable and trained and qualified to use an arc welder. And every time I go near one, I hear my dad saying, "Don't touch that."
Yeah.
So you're right. You know what I mean? Like why? I have no reason. I could easily do that. I am capable. I am, but no, I know that this is a dangerous thing, and Dad won't let me touch it. What am I thinking? You know what I mean? Like how that gets drained into your head,
Yeah.
Because, and of course I am like I said, qualified to wire up a house. So, and yet I won't play with electricity. That's probably why. That's a good thing, probably, actually. But still, this has been a fantastic conversation. I should probably get going, though. It's been 2 hours and a bit.
Oh, no worries, Neil. Where are you, Greg? Greg must have gone and had a coffee.
Or passed out.
Well, could have done that. Now, it's only 11 o'clock. He'd still be around. Yeah.
Well, you might have to call him.
Good, Neil. Good to catch up, Neil.
Oh, yeah, I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, you better give him.
Greg's back, I think.
Yeah,
I just saw him unmute anyway.
He was. Oh, I didn't think he was muted.
Well, no, I just saw it go mute and come back out. Maybe he busted a speaker. I don't know.
Oh, well.
Either way,
Neil.
Yeah, I had a great time, guys. This was a lot of fun.
All right, we can do this again.
Yes, and I'm glad that we had a nice conversation.
Yeah, Greg said something. Can't you hear me? Greg just said,
"Can't we can't hear you." No, we can't hear you at all.
No. Microphone's unplugged, Greg.
Yeah, hit it with your knee or something.
He might have been talking and no one's been listening.
Yeah, we were just literally talking over you. We didn't care at all what you had to say. Thank you, host. Anyway, I'll let you both go and you can figure that out. Yeah, it's okay. We'll wrap it up. Yeah.
All right, dude. Yep, no worries. Yep, got that, Greg. Yep, we'll catch you later, Neil. See you later, Greg. Bye.
Take care, friends.
Special thank you to Neil for coming on. Had a great time and look forward to doing it again soon. Thanks for tuning in. Please don't forget to like, share, comment. Do donate to the cause if you can. Thank you so much. Take care. I'll see you on down the road.